Welcome to the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans watch the best and worst horror movies of all time and talk about them. My name is Ben Errington, and today I'm joined by regular co-host, Mr.
Andy, Conduit Turner. Hello, Ben. What a wonderful time it is to be back together again. It feels like it's been ages.
It's been an age, reunited, and it feels so good.
It
Maybe the
does.
last three episodes, is that correct? The last three
Yeah,
episodes we've
three
been.
episodes separate. I mean, yeah, just the scheduling's been a nightmare. We've both had work travel and various crises going on, but back together at long last.
Various crises, but we've come through them.
We have.
Bigger, faster, stronger than before. I hope
Yeah,
so.
most definitely.
I'm glad
Ah,
to
and
hear
what a
it.
wonderful
Well,
time it is to get back together and talk about some lovely horror movies.
some lovely, lovely horror movies.
Yeah.
It's my favorite time of the week, as always. We've had some great guests the last few weeks, of course, but nice for us to be back together discussing a movie very much of its time. Um, and this is definitely one of those experiences it's good to reminisce on because wow, how times have changed in 24 years.
Yeah. I mean, the very fact it's 24 years is giving me a little bit of palpitations anyway. But yeah, this one's been an interesting watch. If you haven't read the title, talking about scary movie today, everybody. 2000s, the year 2000s, scary movie.
When you say
Um,
2000, I was thinking there are 2000 scary movies. There are five scary movies, right? Which I don't know what happened, but Scary Movie 5, I have no recollection of at all. And even looking at the poster, I have no idea what's going on. I can see Charlie Sheen on the poster. I can see Mike Tyson on the poster. But apart from that, oh wait, Lindsay Lohan actually maybe as well.
I don't think I've seen five. Definitely
No,
seen the
but
first three, maybe.
I've definitely seen the first three. I feel like I may have seen the fourth one as well. But of course, these films and I've like spoof movies were all always a thing. Well, not always a thing, but if for years gone by they were a thing. But Scary Movie in the year 2000 spawned a series of spoof movies, um, which let's be totally honest, are the utter dregs
Yeah.
of cinema.
And the writing
Shite.
team behind this one, obviously, it's one of the Wayans brothers who is the director and co-writer, but the alumni from the wider writing team of this one are also the same people that brought you Epic Movie. We talked about this on one of our tangents a few weeks ago. Meet the Spartans, superhero
I still
movie.
can't believe that's a thing.
Yeah,
Yeah. And you know what? I feel like spoof movies are pretty naff, but I feel like if we're going to give any of them credit, I think Scary Movie, the first one, is kind of is kind of yes, it's aged or it's aged quite terribly in some places, but it still I still had a few laughs with it. But I think of all of them, this one feels a little more like a bit more care and attention's gone into it than something like perhaps, Epic Movie. Not that I even remember seeing Epic Movie or
I don't
Disaster
think I've
Movie
seen Epic
or
Movie.
Meet the
I have seen
Spartans.
Meet the Spartans on a date of all things. Not the person I'm married to now. Is it because of the movie we saw? Who knows? Who's to say?
You went on a date to watch Meet the Spartans.
Yeah,
Jesus.
not
I sp
specifically. We went on a
I
date, and that happened to be
suppose.
the thing that was on.
Oh, I suppose that could give you. That could be a good thing that you go on a movie like that. If you see someone absolutely belly laughing at it and then you're not finding it funny, or vice versa, then great. Um, so like some of the jokes in Scary Movie are like they're on the nose. They're like offensive. Some in a good way. Sometimes they're a bit tone deaf, but comedy was very different in the year 2000. That's not to say it was great, but also us as comedy enjoyers in the year
Hmm.
2000, we were also very different. And I don't mean we as in human race. I mean like me and you. We were a lot younger. Our tastes would have been very different. Like I'm sure people of a certain age would have found Scary Movie absolutely um horrific to watch and wouldn't find
Yeah,
it funny at all. But someone like my age who was enjoying probably things like Bo Selector and other crap like that. There are some things that luckily I was never a fan of. I'm talking like things like Little Britain and things like that. But this was aimed at a certain demographic of film fan, not even necessarily horror movie fans, but like off the back of Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. So this is more of a send up of like the
Yeah.
American slashers of that era, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. And that's what we'll see. I mean, the plot almost beat for beat is the plot of Scream, corrupted in its own way, with a little dash of some of those other references from those slasher movies of the late 90s, early 2000s put in there as well. But if we go back through the sands of time, I think it's worth revisiting why we ended up covering Scary Movie this week. And it is a bit of our horror news a few weeks ago, right, Ben, when we were talking about how they're preparing to restart the franchise. It's on the cards. And I
Yeah.
think, go back to the episode. I don't know what number it was because it wasn't the title of the episode, but when it hit the news, I think I did had quite a strong reaction to the writers at the time or the producers or someone quoted as saying, "Oh, if people don't think it's funny, it's because you can't joke about anything nowadays, and everyone's too sensitive." And I was
Oh,
raging because I said, "No, it's because you just have to come up with new jokes, mate. Comedy's still a
yeah.
thing." And that's
Like,
one of those things. Like I do certainly think we watched a lot of comedy which you know hasn't aged in the best way, or comedy which is meant to provoke a reaction, to shock you, or to be offensive to some folks. That's a thing. I
yeah.
think the challenge will be, and we saw it with the 5 iterations of the Scary Movie franchise. You've got to keep things fresh, and you've
Oh,
got to
yeah.
keep doing new stuff, right?
Just because you're being outrageous and offensive and like egregious and just all of those horrible things and doesn't mean it's good. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you can't say anything these days. You can't joke about anyone. It's like you can, but it still does need to be kind of it needs to be funny and not in a way which is just like horrible, essentially, isn't
Yeah,
it? Like
I think there's a lot about
you can
punching
still be
up
funny.
versus punching down,
Punching
right?
up,
Like,
punching down, yeah, something that's like in bad taste as well. These these are things where you look back on it, like no one's looking back on Scary Movie 2, 3, 4, and 5 and thinking, what an absolute stone cold classic. What it's like the Naked Gun of spoof movies. Like those films are still looked back on with a level of fondness, but I think everyone is in this agreement that like most of the scary movies are crap. But Scary Movie, the first one with the Wayans brothers involved, is probably a
it's certainly
little
an
bit.
yeah, it's an interesting approach, and I've really struggled with this as we were preparing for this episode. When I think about the comedy things, I don't think I could write down what it is that there are some old comedies that still I could still watch, and there are things that date about them in the same way, but you kind of forgive them for it. I don't know what it is. Like
It's
Airplane,
almost like,
really,
yeah.
really funny still. The Naked Gun, still brilliant, despite the fact, alleged now dead. Not rest in peace, I guess. OJ Simpson is in it.
I wonder what you're gonna say then. I'm like Leslie Nielsen, give him a break.
No,
Uh,
Leslie Nielsen, of course. Um,
it's
star of
almost like
Dracula Dead and Loving It, but like
it's
it's
almost
some
like
there's just some
nostalgia.
things, right? Yeah,
Yeah, it's almost like nostalgia allows you to see through it. You remember how like these films met. And again, like as a kid, I'm not saying as a kid, year 2000, I was 14. I wasn't like so into Scary Movie that it was my favorite film by any stretch. I was still like, it's just stupid, isn't it? Like I'm
yeah.
laughing, but it's just stupid. And it was almost like it is a time capsule of that era as well. Because some of the films it parodies, I'm literally like, what? Like when it goes into like the Matrix sequence, I was a bit like,
Oh my
I was
goodness.
like, oh yeah, of course. So I guess it came out in 2000. So like, yeah, yeah. I mean that makes sense. And it's got Carmen Electra in it, Shannon Elizabeth. So the people who are in it are like so of the time that it's almost like you can only watch it with your head in that zone of the year 2000 and like what there is to expect. I mean, it was an experience because I can't remember the last time I saw this. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's been years, possibly at the time, and probably that's that's a factor of the fact that they did make sequels to them. So if you wanted a new parody movie, did you have to go back and watch the first one again because there
Yeah.
was a new one? There was a new one
I
to
mean, probably
to
not.
watch, which had your pop culture references of that year or the horror movies that came out since the last one
Well,
came out.
that's the thing that there's a mixture. So it seems like most of the when they parody certain things, they kind of do films that are current, but they also do like classic films. In the second one, they do The Exorcist, they do The Haunting, but then and Poltergeist, but the Amityville Horror. But then they also do like Charlie's Angels, because obviously that was out at the time. Number three does like The Ring, Signs, The Others, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Four does like the Saw films, War of the Worlds, Brokeback Mountain, and Scary Movie 5. Like this is the thing. When I was thinking, what kind of films could the new one take on? But then even Scary Movie 5 is taking on like Paranormal Activity, The Cabin in the Woods, Evil Dead, Sinister. So it feels almost like even that is like modern enough. Like I guess the new Scary Movie is going to be a send up of like A24 horror, Ari Aster films, more
Yeah,
highbrow sort of horror. What elevated horror? That's the word I was thinking of.
there'll be a
Probably.
hereditary in there for absolutely sure. Like there'll be a hereditary. Someone will get like or get a like nasty bonk on the head from a telegraph pole, and then there'll be a midsummer. Someone have loads of flowers on them, get
I
burned to
mean,
death while dressed as a bear.
I don't know how I feel about it. Like it could, like in my head, like if Scary Movie 6 was out tomorrow in cinemas, I genuinely don't know if I would go and see it, because I'd just be like, well, maybe I'll wait, because I don't know how I feel about parody, because I definitely lost patience with parody movies from about Scary Movie 2 onwards, where I used to get annoyed, where I used to just be like, you can't make fun of something that is better than you. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
it's the whole
It
it's
feels
the Duke Nukem Forever syndrome, isn't it? That you're poking fun at other things which are far more successful at the thing you're trying to do than you are yourself.
bloody hard work, innit?
Yeah.
But
I guess
still,
that
it was an experience, and I'm sure we
yeah,
got
and
lots to talk about.
I'm glad we've done it, and I'm glad I've come back to think about it. And we'll talk about, I guess, as we go through the actual plot summary, what we took away from the
There's
actual jokes and stuff. I think some of the
surprisingly,
physical stuff, the slapstick is really good.
yeah, but also like it made me realize that like Anna Faris is great. Regina Hall, yeah, great. That whole scene in the cinema, yeah, we're gonna get to it, but amazing. Like
Oh, yeah, she's that's my favorite scene possibly.
I was so invested in that, and there is loads of good stuff, but it's just, I guess it's just some of the like less, just like less necessary jokes in it.
No,
Um,
what got me is I think there's one way. We'll touch on the two bits of it now. One, there's a lot that kind of talks down to people in basically people who are less well off, poorer people. It talks
yeah,
about, the minority characters and so on. And obviously it is partially written and directed by a person of color, and to a degree, you don't know if they're doing this in making fun of the way that the genre often,
portrays.
treats these characters as
Yeah.
disposable, or is it coming the other way around? Is that the message of this film? And it's really hard to say. And you would hope it was the former, and you're just really putting a lampshade on the fact and saying out loud the subtext of what the industry has created from those things. But then you see all the things that are in there about the basically most of the female characters being there to be attractive or to have pressure put on them to have sex with people, or like the bit where they're driving in the car and the guy is really looking for a gobby off Anna Faris and so on. And again, is that
God, babe.
I was watching that thinking, is that again, are you putting like a spotlight on the tropes of the genre, or are you portraying those messages? And then I thought, I wonder who produced this movie, and you'll never guess who it was, Ben.
Oh God. I
That's
mean,
right.
you gave me one guess and I got it, didn't I?
That's right. Old
Oh,
Harvey Weinstein himself. So when you see things which are like aggressively predatory of the female characters in it, and then oh look, it's that man who is, I believe, in prison. I know he got very poorly all of a sudden when all those court cases came out, and he had to go in a wheelchair to court. But yeah, like
But also
it
like
kind of makes it feel a bit grubbier.
grubby. But the stuff that kind of right. So despite the fact that Shawn Wayans portraying Ray Wilkins, and like the the joke is that he's actually gay. That's the joke, and it's throughout the film, and I think the payoff is pretty good.
Yeah.
I do like the payoff to it. It is kind of consistent, and some of it lands, some of it not so much. Um, the Miss I completely forgot about it. The Miss Man stuff, as like the like, it was just
Oh,
so
that bit
so
aged like a bottle of
unnecessary.
milk.
Aged like a bottle of milk, and it was so unnecessary like that. I completely forgot about the scrotum. Again, we'll get to this. Yes, but it is, and forgive the pun, Andy. Low hanging fruit
It
for
is.
a lot of these jokes. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to get into the film, of course. You said you wanted to just do a brief,
Yeah.
like letter score for the episodes we missed.
Yeah, let's do a brief little catch up. So the first one was I missed Abigail with you and Ed. Sorry, Ed, if you're listening. I don't just avoid episodes that you're on, or it's not like some horror hangout law that all three of us can't be together when you're on. It has to be
Yeah.
either me or Ben that can't make it.
Oh dear.
Love you, man. But I did miss you talking about Abigail. I'll tell you very quickly. I liked Abigail a lot. I would give it a B.
You'd give it a B. Okay, I can't remember
Yeah.
what I gave it.
I
Again,
even had a couple of weeks to cool down. I think it was nice
yeah.
popcorn horror, fun. Liked some of the stuff. I liked that Ozymandias was Dad Dracula.
Oh yeah, of course. Forgot about him turning up. What a legend.
And
Grave
then you were away for Grave
Encounters.
Encounters when I was
I
with
was away
Georgia.
for Grave Encounters. I remember liking Grave Encounters a lot more than I did this time around. Again, it might be just because um found footage fatigue, but also like it is one of the most straightforward found footage films there is, I think. Of course, there are some interesting themes, but in terms of the way some of the scares look, I'm pretty sure it was the film that first delivered us a face going, "Ah!" Right? Was it
The
not?
thing that is now available on your mobile phone, now a Snapchat filter.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I would only probably give it a C, I think. Um, yeah, just didn't hold up as well as perhaps some other found footage films have.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
that's fair. I won't elaborate on that further. And what about
Um, Land of the Dead.
Land of Dead? Did you watch it as well?
Yeah, I
You
did
did.
watch it. I've watched it before. I've got a real soft spot for Land of the Dead, and really, very sad to miss Jimmy coming to us live from Australia. We'll have to get him on again. Yeah, I
Mm.
enjoyed listening to your chat very much. I'll correct the record a little bit about. I think I texted you the thing that made me cringe the most about the nails. Um, Dead Reckoning not having nails on the outside. There's a bit where Simon Baker is waiting for the bridge to
Uh,
open, and the zombies run their hands down Dead Reckoning, and their nails all lift. Is it still
oh,
absolutely gets me?
yeah.
That one does. But
How
I
about
think.
do you also
Oh, sorry.
think, sorry to interrupt you before you give us your score. Do you also think that Big Daddy Zombie is always acting like he stubbed his toe?
He does. That's my exact feeling of it.
Ah,
Oh!
agony!
Or he's forgot. He's remembered. He's just missed the bin men. Oh!
Fucker no! They only come round
um,
once a year around Zombie Town.
yeah.
Got it.
Dead reckon. He probably thought it was the bin wagon. That's why he's chasing it. Um,
Exactly.
yeah. So Land of the Dead. It doesn't have the same craft and almost perfect encapsulation of the genre that Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead potentially have. Um, but
Mm.
and I know it's maybe a little bit more shallow or more of a turn towards set pieces versus the more character driven factors of the original, but there is still a lovely message about rich people being terrible and they should probably get eaten in there as well. I quite like that about it, so maybe a horror hangout classic, a B minus from me on that one, because some good effective kills as well, and I like the evolution of the zombies.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It did make me go and watch Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead, which
Oh,
of
you've caught up
course,
with me. So
which
what were
I
your thoughts on them?
let's get into that. What you've been watching because I don't want to spoil that part of the show. I
Oh,
might not have anything
okay.
else to contribute. Okay, a little bit of horror news. Fancy a little bit of
Yes,
that.
please.
Got some gaming stuff. You know how much we love the horror games on this show. And yes, of course, there's Resident Evil. There's a rumor that Capcom are planning a Resident Evil 1 remake for the series' 30th anniversary, and that a Resident Evil 9 reveal will be coming soon. I've read some stuff about the Resident Evil 9. I watch a lot of YouTube content with various creators,
Yeah.
residents of Evil being one of them. A YouTube channel. I definitely recommend you go and check that out if you're a Resident Evil fan. Rumors are that Leon is going to be the Resident Evil 9 protagonist, and it's going to be
Not
an
popular
open,
character Ethan Winters.
not popular faceless character Ethan Winters because a spoiler. But I won't say it. But um, open world apparently. The rumors are currently Resident Evil 9, an open world area, which could possibly be. I think they said it was an island, if I remember correctly, like an island off the coast or somewhere, and like an open world scenario. Like I guess like Resident Evil Village is not really open world, but semi-open world. You can go back and forth between areas and explore areas at your own speed, although it does get quite linear towards the end. But this is exciting, and I know a lot of people say Resident Evil the original shouldn't be remade, but you know the the
I'll buy it
originals
anyway.
the original's wonderful. The 2002 remake is also wonderful. Another version of the game 22 years later, making the most of the RE engine. I'm all for it. I think just as
Yeah.
much as possible. And then
Yeah.
remake Code Veronica, and then remake
Just get
5.
on with it. I tell you what, I
They're
will
good.
accept. I'll chuck you an extra tenner in this one, Resident Evil 1. Chuck zero on before it. Put me
Mm.
zero on to start with, and make 0 and 1 a combined
Zero,
remake.
which is the game I just like to call, it's like they've gone, all those creatures we're going to put in Resident Evil 1 and we didn't because we thought it'd be ridiculous and over the top. Yeah.
I mean,
Stick them in zero. There's a giant bat, there's a centipede, a scorpion, um apes.
there's
I
apes,
mean, there's bloody apes. Exactly, there's apes.
there's big
Um
men made of leeches. I'll give you a massive punch.
Oh, I hate that. Hate. I do. I tell you what, I do hate Resident Evil. I'm going to tell you this. Any sort of enemy, which when you kill it, it just puts itself back together. Don't like that. Never like
Not a
that.
fan.
I don't mind a stalker enemy because I know what I'm dealing with there. I just got to run away. But don't, don't make me waste my bullets on something and then realize it's just put itself back together because that is
Mugs you right off.
it mugs you right off. It's demoralizing, if anything.
I'm
Um,
excited for more Resident Evil news, though. I'm looking forward to. I'd pick up a remake, and as for 9, Capcom have earned a little bit of rope from me. They haven't let me down with a Resident Evil for several entries at this time, so I'm here for it. But
yeah.
he says with a second breath, I'm sick of open worlds and I don't want it.
There'll be an open world area, Andy, and basically you've got to go to high points all around the area, and then the map will
Yeah,
open
to
up.
open up the map, and there's going to be what I don't want is a Resident Evil game with like a little sticker on it that says over 200 hours of kill yourself. My goodness, no. Um,
Uh,
like,
do you know what? I don't hate a game like that, but at the same time, I don't think I want it for Resident Evil.
yeah,
If I'm an Assassin's Creed, if I'm in ancient Greece climbing up the top of massive towers and stuff, I'm all for that. But anything
yeah.
else, no,
Give
thank
me
you.
something which my first run through will take me about 12 hours, but I feasibly could do it in 3 if I was good enough. And let me set me a challenge to do
You're
that, and then let
speed
me
running that shit.
race through it.
Yeah.
Let me give me an invitation to play it again and to explore
Mm,
every corner of a really crafted world. I don't want a massive island that 80% of it is just
mm.
it's boring. I want
It's
a really
bloody boring.
focused. I
It's
want a
almost like
focused
we
thing.
want. a semi-open world scenario, like maybe like a God of War or something like that, because there were areas that you could explore a lot and other areas that were very linear,
Yeah.
but you still have the choice. Maybe
Or,
that's what we need.
give me the traditional, give me, as is tradition for the last few Resident Evil releases, give me the main story focused, contained areas for my main story, and then have something else which comes with it, be it a multiplayer angle,
Mm.
open world that for some reason isn't quite ready by launch time, and then I've moved on before it's come out, and then I never ever look at. Give me one of those.
Give me one of those, please. Absolutely. Um, and another piece of gaming remake news is that the System Shock remake is now available on PlayStation and Xbox.
Is it really?
Did you
I
play?
backed
Did you
that.
play? You backed it
I backed it on
only on
thinking my name's in the
Kickstarter.
credits, maybe.
Oh, if your name's in the credits, I'm definitely gonna buy it now. So a
I think
remake,
I've got a code for Steam for it, maybe. But yeah.
hell yeah. Is it already? I think it already released on Steam. I think it already was on Steam, and now it's on console. I think
Well, I'm gonna
possibly,
have to buy it, finish it, and see if my name's in the credits.
definitely.
Along with hundreds and thousands of other people in tiny font, I'm sure, but I'm gonna look.
So obviously like a horror game, but also like sci-fi as well, isn't it? Um, was it the first kind of game that introduced us to like finding like logs of
I think
various
it's
people?
definitely one
One
of the
of them.
first. I've never played, so for me, even though System Shock is a remake, never played it. I've seen
You've
Showdown
just
from
seen
System
playthroughs,
Shock
yeah.
2 in lots of
Oh
scariest
yeah, of
horror reveal
course.
top tens. Watch
Yeah,
Mojo
yeah, yeah.
lists. But
Yeah.
I've never ever seen, I've never played System Shock for myself all the way through. So maybe now's the time.
Mm. I mean, it sounds like it should be, and I'm the same. I'm exactly the same. So I'm very keen to go and check it out. Most definitely, I need to finish Crow Country, which I mentioned last week. Another
How is that
sort of
coming?
throwback. I've put it down for a while, so I need to pick it back up. Been distracted by other things, Tomb Raider things, so I need to get back to it. And the last piece of news I've got, Andy, is something a theme perhaps that we haven't discussed in this show for a little while, but monkey horror. Okay.
Monkey horror. I've had that on my list to talk to you about, actually, Ben. I think we need to get other Ben back with us to talk about some new monkey horror soon. But what have you got to tell me about the
Some brand
news?
new monkey horror. Um, what I've got to talk to you about is Neon have picked up the Stephen King, James Wan, and Osgood Perkins horror movie, The Monkey, an adaptation of the Stephen King story that's been produced. So as I mentioned, I've already said their names, but produced by Wan, directed by Osgood Perkins. Um, It's a short horror story that appeared in Skeleton Crew, the 1985 collection. Twin brothers Hal and Bill discover their father's old monkey toy in the attic. A series of gruesome deaths start occurring all around them. The brothers decide to throw the monkey away and move on with their lives. Growing apart over the years. He loves this, doesn't he, Stephen King? Get back together years later. But then mysterious deaths begin again. The brothers must reunite to find a way to destroy the monkey for good. It's not a real monkey, it's just a little
So
toy monkey. Look.
it's like a toys. Okay,
The
but I'm
thing is,
willing to allow it.
in real life, if you found a monkey toy and then people started dying, there ain't no way
You never
you
put those two
you
things
never
together.
put those two and two. You'd be like, you know what? I think it's that's that bloody monkey toy, isn't it? This yeah, and obviously Osgood Perkins, he is directing the upcoming Long Legs with Nicolas
That looks
Cage
good.
and oh, it does look good. Yeah, well, I watched it. I've been trying to like look at as little as possible, but I have seen the latest trailer. He also directed Gretel and Hansel, which I think is that the one with
That Jeremy Renner?
yeah, but there was another sort of Gretel and Hansel film, wasn't there? No, no, it's not the Jeremy Renner one. It's that 2020 dark fantasy version, which is really good
Oh,
as
I've not
far as I
seen that then.
remember. It's really good as far as I remember. It's like a very weird sort of twisted take on it, and it's a pretty twisted story already. You know what I mean?
From the
Um,
twisted mind of the Brothers Grimm.
from
And
the
from the
twisted
olden days
mind.
and the standards, if we've learned anything from Scary Movie, in the past, people were fucked. So
Yeah,
if they were twisted back then,
so twisted that you know this film usually is Hansel and Gretel, but we're gonna call it Gretel and Hansel. All right,
put the
put that
buddy,
in your pipe and smoke it. All
put
right.
the buddy, the woman's name first, they'd be going mad in them days. Couldn't have done it.
They would be going mad in them days. Someone would be getting burnt at the stake. All right, someone would. Um, that's it for horror news, Andy. Unless you've got anything else
I tell you
worth
what, I will tell you, Ben,
mentioning.
a little bit of horror news because it's sort of what we've not been watching, but I did want to share a couple of names for your horror watching lists for the future. So, what with
Lovely.
everything going on, despite the fact my other travel plans were cancelled, I also couldn't fall back on being able to make it to Dundee while I was at home. But you know who did make it there? Your friend and mine, friend of the show, John Crinan. So
Hell
let me
yes.
share with you John Crinan's report from if there was a jingle that we had for John Crinan report, like the Cook report, but less customer service issues related and dodgy builders and more just, here's some good films I watched. This is what John Crinan had to say. Said there was some absolute bangers. It was amazing for him to see Texas Chainsaw Massacre up on the big
Oh yeah, of
screen,
course.
beautifully restored. But a couple of favorite new picks that you will hopefully be able to see in other places around the country, around the world as the year progresses. And John's on board with my lot, actually, then, because two French movies caught his attention that he really enjoyed. One of them was Humanist Vampire Seeking Suicidal Victim.
Oh yeah,
It's about a
told
humanist
me about
vampire.
this.
Yeah, apparently he thought that was phenomenal. Thought it was a really, really great movie. Didn't want to give anything away, said I should just watch it as soon as possible. And his other favorite, another French movie, gave me sort of vibes of the Soul Eater that we saw at Fright Fest Glasgow earlier this year. But the Red Rooms is like a French horror thriller, um, talking about the investigations of a serial killer. So those were his two recommendations. So Red Rooms and
Oh
Humanist
yeah.
Vampire. If you type that, you'll find the full title. Yeah, so I have put those to the very top of my watch list, and as soon as they become available, I'm going to catch up with those.
Amazing. Did he see Sting as well? I know that premiered on
He
the
did
Friday,
see
didn't it?
Sting. Yes, it had its UK premiere at Dundee. He enjoyed it. Said it was a fun creature feature, but in the not too distant future, we'll be able to catch up on that and see it for ourselves. Give our reviews.
Yeah, we'll have to chat about it most definitely. Um, awesome. So, should we move on to what we've been watching?
What I've
Shall
been
I?
watching? Yeah, what have you been watching, Ben? I've only got a
Well,
couple.
shall I mention the the of the Dead films, which obviously you have already mentioned on this show a couple of weeks
Not
ago,
long
but
ago, yeah.
off the back of Land of the Dead, I thought I'd go and watch George A. Romero's other zombie movies, and I've seen both of them before. I didn't really remember anything about Survival of the Dead, but Diary of the Dead, again, another like found footage film that does a lot of the found footage tropes. I think it's got a few decent moments. Some of the stuff's like kind of half baked, like you know what I mean? Like the found footage stuff that really doesn't land in any found footage film is moaning at the person who's got the camera, or the person
I
who's got
know.
like,
Just give it a rest. He's not
or
going to put it
or
down.
or the person who's got the camera like making an excuse for needing to have the camera. You know what I mean? Like that is the stuff that doesn't quite land. I think it's got some interesting moments and like that. The news report at the start's pretty cool. Like that's pretty creepy. I think like the fact that there's
Yeah, that's
some
good.
people dead and they get up, and then the stuff towards the end, like with the panic room and all the other cameras that they've got as well. There are some hokey performances, but it doesn't ruin things. Isn't old She Hulk in it as well?
I didn't pay attention to the cast. I'm now going to have to look at this live.
Um, it I don't know. I don't know. Maybe not. But yeah, as I was saying, there are some Tatiana Maslany. Yeah, She
That is
Hulk.
her.
She Hulk
Yeah.
herself. She's in it as well, but in just like kind of a bit part, like not really a big deal. Survive. Right. So anything that I found hokey about Diary of the Dead that I could kind of see past, I could not see past in Survival of the Dead. Some of these performances, like there's a sergeant who I think was in Diary of the Dead, and
The
then he's
guy
like
that
one
robs them in Diary
the
of the
guy that
Dead,
robs
right?
them becomes like the main character in this, right?
Yeah.
What the hell? Like there is not a single person in this film who acts like an actual human being. There's some weird sort of like power struggle between these two like Irish guys.
They
I
all
don't
live in
reckon he.
America, but they just happened. And it's so weirdly done that they
Patrick
just happen to
O'Flynn
live on an island, not Ireland, as in the country, an
on an
island
island.
off the coast of America. But it's very strange that all these American characters go on a 20-minute boat ride to
Right.
this
Can you
island
tell?
where everyone is Irish.
I don't want to spoil anything, but there was a daughter character who I was sure was alive for a bit. Then I was like, oh, now she's dead. She's a zombie. But then she was alive again.
She
And
was a
then,
twin.
what the, I mean,
I'm not having any problems with spoiling survival of the dead, Ben.
I was
Yeah,
obviously
she's
not
a
paying
twin.
quite enough attention.
So there's a fake out, but then unfortunately, the daughter that's not a zombie, despite the fact she has survived for years in a
Yep.
world of zombies, gets really carelessly bitten at the very end because she walks over to her
Puts
sister
her
and
hand
goes,
out.
"She's trying to talk to me," and she literally puts a hand out to her and gets it bitten.
Basically, what's frustrating about this is that obviously George A. Romero tries to establish something in Land of the Dead where he's like the zombies are like thinking for themselves and there's going to be a bloody zombie society coming up, and it just kind of feels like Diary of the Dead. I know is a bit of a found footage gimmick, but it just feels like Survival of the Dead. It's unfortunate because of course the original trilogy from George A. Romero is absolutely classic zombie cinema, all three of them, but this one kind of just feels like a made for TV movie. And the acting reminded me of the Telltale Games Walking Dead. You know, like when you're trying to make a decision and they're kind of like going,
They
it
have a
was
little
kind of,
the little timers ticking down. It's like
yeah. And if you get it wrong, it was like that. No one was speaking like an actual
Seamus will
human
remember
being.
that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No one was speaking like an actual human being. They're all speaking like everything anyone said was like you see, I'm a badass. So, and it was just, all it wasn't unwatchable, but it was very, very annoying. So
Yeah.
yeah, Diary of the Dead, it's all right, you know. Survival of the Dead, nah, you're right. That I mean, that is pretty much it. It for me this week. Apart,
Uh,
I did watch Scary Movie and then Scary Movie 2. That took up a bit more of my time.
that is grand. And I don't have very much more to share. I have two for you, Ben, that I've seen this week. One um, is a film that I backed on Kickstarter a while ago, and it arrived in the post.
Oh
So,
wow.
this is a film called The Slave and the Sorcerer. It is
Oh.
directed by Romeo Franco, but the producer, the man behind it all, is local to me. Laurie Brewster is his name. He does a lot of work. He's a Scottish filmmaker. He lives about an hour from me, I think, not too far away. And it was him who put together the Kickstarter, who got it put together. And this is well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the synopsis. When Princess Mayra is kidnapped by the evil wizard Akaris, slave Tyrrell volunteers to lead a mission to his cursed dungeon lair to save her from his clutches, along with a band of heroes of questionable loyalty. Um, it
I
is
do love a
like
band
a
of heroes, you know.
classic. It is like a classic old school in your your eras of like Conan the Barbarian, your Dungeons and Dragons cartoons. It is unashamedly low budget throwback filmmaking with
Wow.
inexpensive CGI and practical effects and people in costumes and just that kind of stories from films like Kroll and things like that you'll have
Yeah.
seen
Oh,
these
Kroll,
adventures
man.
coming through. It is, don't go in expecting the graphical fidelity that you'll have got from the Dungeons and Dragons movie last year or anything like that, but I had a damn lot of fun watching it. It is very tongue in cheek and it has trauma levels, maybe not quite trauma levels. That's a very, very high bar in terms of gross out and gore, but really, really gory. There's some face pulls. You would feel fine with this in a Land of the Dead
Oh
sense of
yeah.
things. And I had an absolute delight watching it. It was so much fun. I think the team are doing more to resurrect an old film studio and actually doing more of this type of film. So check out,
Wow.
I think
Okay.
Laurie Brewster is probably the person to check out and follow and see what other projects they're doing. To this point, Ben, I know it's going to be quite hard to find more copies of this. I'm not sure if they're now just selling the copies on general release, but If
Mm.
you can't pick up a copy of this film, I will post you mine so you can watch it. I thought
Oh
it was a lot
man,
of fun.
that's
Um,
incredibly kind of you. I will.
so,
Oh, of course, and of course, I'll post it back. Unless the old raw can't rely on the raw mail, can you? Of course you can.
or
You'll be
if
all
we
right.
don't get to
Yeah.
catch it before, next time we're together at an event, we'll sit down and watch it. It was a blast. Lots of fun.
Oh man,
The other
lovely.
thing I saw a lovely new release at the cinema. I did make one cinema trip, and I say new, very much feels like a film I saw a few years ago. I saw The Strangers: Chapter 1.
Oh God, yes. Now, I don't know why, but for some reason, based on reviews, I went, you know what? I'm gonna wait. Hit me with
Yeah,
it.
and you know what? You could have if you've seen The Strangers. In fact, then maybe I think you will find it an improvement because you know what doesn't happen in The Strangers Chapter 1 versus the film that it's a remake of.
Go on.
No one leaves the ice cream out. And in fact, it wouldn't matter if they did
Yeah.
because the as part of the story, this is not a major spoiler for anyone who still hasn't seen new release The Strangers Chapter 1. Um the fridge is broken when they get to the Airbnb that they're staying in. They're like, "Oh, should we phone someone? That fridge isn't
Bloody
working."
hell.
So it wouldn't even matter. Couldn't have put the ice cream in it. It would have made no
So
difference.
it's not a remake, but it's a very, very similar film. Is that right?
Um, it could have been a remake. To be fair, there are a couple of action beats that are slightly different. Um, the whole thing with the proposal that didn't come, they are just a couple who incidentally get stuck in a town and have
Mm.
to stay in the Airbnb, and then the bloody strangers come.
I'm bloody stuck in this town.
The strangers come. There's some. I can see what they might be doing for it. I feel like basically we had a huge gap between the original Strangers and the Strangers Pray at Night, and Pray at Night was a complete departure from that original. I
Yeah.
feel like perhaps upon reflection, I'm not reading this from interviews. I'm sure if you actually heard people talk to the creative team, maybe they've thought differently. But it feels like maybe they thought there was more of this for a more connected franchise than they expected. And with what they did with Pray at Night, it no longer worked because you kill all the strangers in it effectively. Maybe one of them's fine at the end.
Yeah.
Um, so in this one, it has definitely been designed, and the other two have already been announced. The second part is out later this year, so it's a pretty rapid release schedule. I think
Oh
they're just looking
Jesus.
to, yeah, I think it's out in October, so it might really pick up if it comes out for a Halloween release.
It's
Um,
weird.
so the action beats are a little different. Some of the setup is a little different. Madeline Petch, who plays I guess the equivalent of Liv Tyler's character Maya,
Hmm.
in
Maya who?
particular, I thought she was pretty good. They don't have second names, sadly.
Maya who? Maya.
No,
Ha, ha. Sorry. Can help it. Can help it.
very good. My fault for not catching on fast enough. Um, you could argue that the strangers are not just motiveless killers because Ryan, the boyfriend of the pair, is
Hmm.
very rude in a restaurant that they go into, and the thing I would have murdered
Oh.
him for that.
No need for
She
that.
was like, "There's a little comment again, minor spoiler for a bit of dialogue. They talk about how long they've been going out with the waitress. The waitress goes, "Oh, how long have you guys been together?" It's all 5 years, and the lady at the diner goes, "How come you haven't put a ring on it? What are you waiting for?" And Ryan goes, "Right now, I'm just waiting for my tuna melt." And I'm like, "Oh, Ryan,
Wait, does he actually say tuna
son of a
melt?
bitch, turkey melt." But yeah,
Tuna melt? Like, what's he doing?
um,
Where are they eating? It sounds like a very
they're meeting at a
quintessentially
place. They're
British.
eating at a place called Carol's Diner. I guess that is one element that I will give this film. You meet a lot more sort of incidental characters when they start. There is the diner owner. They meet the sheriff very briefly, and apparently the sheriff is in the it's Richard Brake plays the sheriff, recognizable character actor. He's going to be in the follow up films as well. So
Mm,
you do meet a lot of in the setup to the movie. You meet like very quickly, like less than a minute each, or
lots
it's
of
in passing.
characters.
In this
Mm.
town, you meet a passing cast of characters, and I don't know if the gimmick of this film as it evolves is going to be you trying to work out who the strangers are, because there are some people who are the right ages and the right builds to be all three of the strangers. And
Yeah.
it could be a bit of fun. The success of this remake and how necessary it is, I think,
Are we
really
saying it's just
heavily
not connected?
hinges on what
Not
comes out.
connected.
I think it's just a remake. I think it assumes the others don't exist.
Weird. I don't know. Like as it's got closer to that film being released, the less and less I've been interested in it. The reviews didn't fill me with much confidence, but maybe when it's available at home, or I
Yeah,
will
there,
I will
there,
check it
there
out.
might be, as the series expands, it might come into something special if it leans into the mystery element a bit of it. But if you've seen The Strangers fairly recently,
Mm.
you do not need to rush.
Like
There's nothing
it
that's
just
groundbreaking.
again it just feels like another one of those films where like an interconnected expanded universe is just not needed. It's that's not what makes the original interesting. And I think I preferred Pray at Night in a way because I felt like I had more style to it.
Love the
Um,
80s stuff.
love the 80s stuff, but I don't know. Yeah, an interconnected. I almost like feel the only thing I can imagine being okay is that like the strangers, the role the strangers isn't like the same three people. It's kind of like a mantle that certain people take up.
Like the
That
Dread
could be
Pirate Roberts.
exactly just like that. But
Um,
yeah,
the only thing I will say then, if you're going to burn the marketing at all on this, I think some of the marketing earlier on is like before they were strangers, like the first
yeah,
kill Orphan
that makes
style.
sense.
But much like Orphan First Kill, they
Oh,
just were. They're the
fucking hell.
strangers already, mate.
That is, you know it, and if anyone listens to this bloody show, you know it as well. That is my biggest pet peeve, and I hate the fact that it just feels like mainstream horror or mainstream cinema hasn't cottoned on to the fact that that isn't a prequel, for God's sake.
It just was. Then
It just
again,
was. Do you want
I'm
to
going
know
to
how
call
Batman was
myself out on
made?
that one because I don't want things like Alien to be explained. So when
No,
so when
I
it's like
know.
when
I'd rather just
Prometheus is that, I'm
not.
like, nah, don't tell me. Let them always just
But
were.
but when you market things as just as like before they were the strangers, before they were an orphan, before they were this, then you kind of need to. I don't want it necessarily. I don't want the scariest. Like I don't want to see. Well, which Leatherface was it? Where it was like this kid is definitely Leatherface, and it ended up being like a different one. Do you remember that?
Oh, it is like a Texas Chainsaw prequel when it's just the Texas Chainsaw incident.
The Texas Chainsaw Boy. But he's not a chainsaw. But there was a boy who used to love chainsawing trees down, and then he became a chainsaw man.
And
Like it's
someone
just,
said to him, "Put some bloody moisturizer on, mate. Your skin will be like leather out in the Texas sun all day."
and he went right. That's it.
And that really got
Ridiculous.
in his head and thought, "I'm gonna have to chop people's faces off to protect my own alabaster skin."
Yeah, I have had a guts full of stuff like that, and but we move on. Okay, should we move on to the main event, Andy?
The main event, because we've both seen film of the week, which is of course Ben.
Film of the week is Scary Movie, and that is a year 2000 American slasher parody film directed by Keenen Ivory Wayans, written by Marlon and Shawn Wayans, who are both also starring in the film. The plot is a year after disposing of the body of a man they accidentally killed, a group of dumb teenagers are stalked by a bumbling serial killer. Now, if that synopsis sounded familiar, it's because this film is mainly parodying Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer, but it's sprinkled with parodies of a lot of horror films and a lot of films that were popular in the year 2000 as well. Um, so what have we got in terms of ratings? 6.3 on IMDb out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, 51% audience score, 43% critic score. On Letterboxd, 3.1 out of 5. A few choice reviews. Calvin says, you need something called taste to enjoy this movie, and not everyone has that. 5 stars. Alor says, not even that scary, to be honest. The title is misleading. 3 stars. Mario says, this is so dumb, but I was also very stoned, and it was hilarious. 2.5 stars. But then Dirk H says, so unfunny, it's not funny anymore. 1 star. So, as you can see, the reviews differing all over the place. And as we've already mentioned, if you were to watch this film as a brand new audience member for the first time in the year 2024, and I don't mean in the year 2024 because of the nature of the comedy or anything like that. I mean literally because of the nature of the references. Like you had to be a certain age to really enjoy a lot of these references that were being parodied. Um, yeah, if you were to watch it as a new audience, you'd probably be like, "What is going on?" It's a fever dream. Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer are the two films, but it also tackles Halloween, The Shining, Friday the 13th, The Sixth Sense, The Blair Witch Project, The Usual Suspects, The Matrix, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, Ben, you talk about watching it as a new audience member right now. I've actually got a review from another podcaster I follow, Joel Dusha, who said this is his review. His 3-star review says, "Dicks are funny and scary movie gets it." And yeah, I just watched this for the first time ever in the year 2020. Brave. Hashtag coronavirus watch.
Coronavirus watch. Oh my God. Can you
Yeah.
imagine? Like that time in itself was like a fever dream, let alone sticking on a year 2000 parody horror movie with references. I was trying to think of what references I had. There were some references where I was just like, that is niche. I mean, I know because I'm a dick, but yeah, dick jokes, fart jokes, tit jokes, jizz jokes, the jokes about a certain character being gay literally throughout the whole thing. I mean, the suggestion that if you go to prison, you are immediately bummed by everybody
Yep.
there. That is like a joke constantly just going on. Um, Racial stereotypes, tiny baby dicks, um, you name it.
There's Dawson's Creek. There's plenty of references to that.
Dawson's Creek. Oh my God.
Now,
Again.
Ben, remind me. I think I've cast. What slasher did we watch earnestly that had Pacey from Dawson's Creek in it recently, and the Dawson's Creek music came on
Yeah,
as he was.
Urban
That wasn't a
Legend.
parody film. Urban
No,
Legend.
Urban Legend. The theme tune comes on, and that person, not the same person who's in this, right? The other guy.
Yeah, because that actually is someone from Dawson's Creek,
Yeah,
isn't
he
it?
turns on his radio, and then he goes. The Dawson's Creek music comes on, and he goes, "Oh God, I hate that song." Turns it off,
I
and
need to
it's like,
find out which of
"Oh
these
my
films
God,
came out
it's
first and did the. Do you happen to
Urban
know?
Urban Legend came out first. Urban Legend came out in
Two. They ate
98.
your lunch. Scary movie. 2 years before.
Oh, 2 years. And a scary movie. Again, this was a film that I think if you were like of a certain age in the year 2000, it was like the best thing. You know what I mean? Because we were all kind of like enjoying American Pie, Dude, Where's My Car,
Yeah,
Road Trip. We were enjoying all of these egregious, over the top, outrageous, ridiculous, disgusting teen comedies, essentially.
yeah.
And what this did
Van
was like,
Wilder party liaison, where
oh
he
my God.
literally wanks the dog off into buns and then feeds them to his rival.
Dog wanking. There was definitely a film with like pubes on a pizza. I think that was a American Pie movie.
Yes, I think
Um,
so.
Shagging a Pie, obviously. Loads of like
Makes what's
outrageous
his
stuff.
face need a poo real bad.
Oh yeah. Wait. So I'm a guess like films that just don't exist anymore, right? It's not like a Gen Z version of a of a teen American comedy. They are just like what I see. I don't watch those type of films, but they seem like sort of like love stories or like earnest love stories. There aren't really with a little bit of light-hearted comedy
Yeah,
thrown in.
I think there might be a rise of I think comedy films of your generally accessible comedy films have had a bit of a lull, but they're coming back. What was your Jennifer Lawrence one earlier this year?
No hard feelings. Yeah.
So No Hard Feelings will have those
Yeah,
vibes
it
to
was
it. Maybe
okay.
not quite as
Slight.
heavily slapstick and
Yeah.
gross out as that one is, but it's that kind of feeling, right? Like,
These films still have seem to have a little bit of heart to them,
yeah.
They
And we
seem
had
to end up.
Booksmart a couple of years ago, right?
Oh yeah, Booksmart was great, but again, that feels almost like that's the thinking man's comedy. But then again, like the films that followed this, like Superbad, around about like sort of like that era, Pineapple Express, things like that, which were like they're like teen comedies, and then those felt like sort of I don't know, like genuinely well written, actually ridiculous and funny,
Yeah,
and probably have
I
held
think
up.
it
Sure,
just
I'm sure some
I
things
think it
haven't,
just
but
I think it just came along a little bit, and the parody element of it died off, and people then just write the comedy stuff, right?
yeah. And I mean, yeah, as I said, at a certain age, I was all over this. I loved all the American Pie movies. But yeah, you kind of just move on. You can look back retrospectively and still enjoy these things because nostalgia wise, and some jokes like genuinely just don't um stop being funny. Like there are some
Yeah,
there are, like as I said, some of the physical stuff in this is still genuinely funny,
the bit
and
where the piano
most of
chases him down the stairs, killing me. It was so good.
most of the time the things you're laughing at are like, I cannot believe that that is in this
Yeah,
film. I forgot that that is in this film, and that they just got away with it essentially. Like there is stuff like that.
yeah. There are just I think it's very quick, and like you mentioned these reviews as well. I feel it's one of those things that becomes becomes polarizing, and people have an emotional response to it. Your first review that was like takes something called taste to enjoy this movie, and some people just I'm reading it in an arsehole voice, but you can read it like that because it feels like that is a review of someone who people have said I think this film's shit, and they have doubled down on it to say, well,
Yeah,
actually, unless you absolutely suck, you know, then you don't like this movie. It's that has for me the same tone as people say if you don't like the new one, it's because you can't joke about anything anymore. It's fine to just be disinterested and say how, you know, in many ways there are films that I would probably still consider genuinely funny, but if you showed it to a new audience, you'd be like, what the fuck are you on about, mate?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
This makes no sense. And really, really swift one. I watched my with my housemate many years ago. He's about 10 years younger than me. We watched Alien together for the first time, and he was like, "This is real slow. It took ages for it to
You
get
didn't find
going."
it funny at all.
No, so it's not done any jokes.
Boring.
Oh, you put this on. I thought it was comedy night. But you know, like the way that people of different generations and the way the other things they've watched that will color the way you'll respond to these things. But I do think this film is probably a victim of some people who are responding to the criticism say actually it's the best and fuck you, and likewise there are probably other people who just haven't watched it who've gone, oh, this is really offensive, therefore there is nothing, you know, there might be one element of it which is now off color by modern sensibilities, and
I think
therefore
we're
they're going, oh,
talking.
this is all bad, and actually there's still a lot of funny things in
Yeah,
here.
and I mean it is off color. It's not like out and out offensive. Do you know what I mean? Like there are
Yeah.
some bits, some of the bits like in the first, like in the second movie that kind of like put me off a bit were just I don't know, kind of just a bit disgusting rather than like offensive. Uh, which there's plenty of in this one.
Disgusting.
There's what one of you and then flushed the toilet after you had a shat. I think this was also the film that I first heard the turn of phrase Jennifer Love huge tits, which I think I've adopted in my like
I
daily
think that just became
vocabulary.
the normal description of her. I bet she's well
Yeah, it
pissed off.
did. Jennifer Love huge tits. And I was always of the sense I was like, are they? But you know, maybe that
Just a
just
normal
proves
woman.
you're just a normal woman with a normal sized bosom. But on closer inspection, Andy, it does seem like they're quite big. Anyway, so moving swiftly on to I guess the cast we mentioned Anna Faris. This was kind of like the first time we saw her, and she became quite prominent in various comedy roles in the years to follow. Um, she's got a very expressive face, isn't she?
She
Jon
has.
Abrahams, and she's like Sydney Prescott slash Julie James from I Know He Did Last Summer. She's like that
Mhm.
character. And again, the plot is almost beat for beat Scream, but with sprinklings of other things. Jon Abrahams, Marlon Wayans and Shawn Wayans, Regina Hall, Shannon Elizabeth,
Jack Frost's Shannon Elizabeth,
Jack
obviously.
Frost slash Shannon Elizabeth, who's essentially doing a parodied version of a character she just plays in all films
Yeah,
from 99 through to 2004 probably. Dave Sheridan as Goofy sorry, not Goofy Gilmore, Doofy Gilmore, who I feel like in his own right has become somewhat of a sort of celebrity. I've seen him doing appearances as Doofy, for example. Although when I click on his picture on what the hell? When I click on his picture on Wikipedia, the picture of him that's come up is completely unrecognizable. Looks like bloody Fred Durst. That's crazy.
Fred Durst, who
Um,
is in an upcoming horror movie, by the way. I saw the TV Glow has Fred Durst in it.
oh, really? I didn't know
Yep.
that. I did not know that. Okay, so yeah, this film is like a send up of those slasher films, and it starts off with a parody of the opening scene from Scream, but with Carmen Electra playing the role of Drew Barrymore, and the character's actually called Drew Decker. She receives a threatening phone call while home alone by Ghostface, essentially, right?
Yeah. I feel like you can set the bar for what you can expect for this film by the rapidity of the jokes that are going to be coming at you as well. They set the bar. The first little bit of this one, it's almost played fairly straight while she answers the phone, and then it's like, "What was that sound?" She's like, "Oh, I just farted. I didn't think you'd hear it." And it's like,
It's just so that there's that obviously. Then there's a bit where there's like a lineup of weapons, a knife, and a few other things, and she takes the banana.
yeah,
Yeah, that's silly. When she's like running away, obviously the sprinklers are on, and she's wet, and her clothes like get ripped off, and she's doing a sexy slow mo thing going on.
yeah. She
Um,
gets to choose to run to either safety or certain death.
oh yeah, of course. Do you know what? It's really difficult to remember the actual jokes in this film because they are rapid, but also like because it's literally sending up Scream. It's difficult to like remember because in its own right, Scream as a sort of like meta horror movie, it's referencing loads of things as well. So the fact
It's
that that's
pointing
being
these things at
parodied,
itself. Yeah,
it's really difficult to like get up to speed with. Anyway, she also gets stabbed and it removes one of her silicone breast implants, doesn't it?
yeah.
which is horrible, really, when you think about it. Um, and then
Having your
obviously
implants stabbed out, that'd be ever so sore. Come sharp, wouldn't it?
it would come incredibly sharp. And she gets hit by a car, which her dad's driving, because
Yeah, so it's
he's
the ending of the
he's
scene
getting a
in
gobby.
obviously Scream. Yeah, he's getting noshed off by her mom, and she gets and the slapstick in this again. I think you could have been watching this, and if you could have come into this with your if you were a person that was offended by some of these things, you could be like incandescent at this point. But then I defy you not to
You just
laugh
turn
because
off,
the
wouldn't you?
the, the slapstick of someone getting it's a good bit of physical slapstick. This person getting pinged off the front of a
I think
car.
if you're watching this first scene and you're turned off by it, you're gonna just switch off.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, it's
if you
yeah.
get as
If
far
you
as
get through
into
that scene, it's not going to be for you, mate. I don't think.
and obviously like Carmen Electra, like big star, like year 2000 as well, like what a person to have in the opening sequence, eh?
Yeah,
In the same way that obviously when Scream came out, people thought Drew Barrymore was going to be the main star of it and then kill her off. I wonder if they did anything similar with this. I suppose she's in the second row of the poster behind your head.
yeah. Does Carmen Electra appear in any of the others? Do we see her come back, or do they pick other people to
Don't
turn
know
up in
actually.
others?
Don't know. Not sure. Um. So yeah, she gets killed, and then we're introduced to everybody at the school. It almost looks like the same school as as
Yeah,
as Scream. Cindy Campbell meets her. Bobby is her boyfriend is Bobby Prinz. So obviously Freddie
yeah,
Prinze Jr. who like lives in a trailer like literally next to the school door.
yeah,
And I suppose they're making out that he's like some sort of what could you say, redneck. That's probably a
yeah.
really
So
that's what they're making him
basically,
out to be.
a lower class, like rural guy who lives in a trailer with several brothers and
What was
sisters,
that?
right?
What was that based on though? What were we making fun of there? Are we making it Skeet Ulrich's
Is it
character in
Skeet
Scream?
Ulrich?
Yeah, it feels like that, but I'm like, it feels there's a lot of like character traits that these people have got that seems to just plucked out of the air. Like there's no real like, I'm like, what is it parody? And I don't really get it, or maybe it's got to have its own identity in a way, isn't it? Then we got yeah, the group are essentially like Buffy Gilmore, who is Shannon Elizabeth, who she's everyone calls her the basically the school slut, don't they? They say
Yeah,
she's
slagging her
sleeping
off.
with slagging her off, sleeping with everyone. She says she loves the human race, but then a homeless person comes up to them and says,
He's like, get the fuck out.
"Get the fuck
Yeah.
out of here, you dirty old bum!" And then there's a bit where Cindy gives him a sandwich and he throws it at the
Then
back of
he
it.
throws it back at her.
The thing is, I do remember all these bits, like almost beat for beat. When I was watching it, that is, I was like, oh yeah, okay. Brenda's stone. So Brenda is Regina Hall, who's like Cindy's best friend, who is probably like the most genuinely funny like line delivery throughout the film. Brother Shorty, who was played by Shawn Wayans. No, Marlon Wayans,
Marlon
who's
Wayans, yeah.
just like a stoner. That's it. That's his character trait, stoner.
I
And then we
feel
got
like this was the character that was the quotable one when you're a teenager when you saw this movie, right?
yeah. Well, yeah, because there is an actual like this is actually funny when they say when they're talking about the murder of Drew Decker, they said, "What would you have said to her if you could have said anything to her before she died?" And he went, "Run, bitch, run!" Because so the reporter, so the spoof of Gail Weathers is Gail Hailstorm, and she's got like what is he like Jamaica? Is it Jamaica? Yeah, Jamaican like cameraman who she's like constantly berating, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Always
and she's
hammering it. And like Gail, like the Gail Weathers character isn't as quite as tied into the main group as you would find in Scream. She interacts with them a few times, but
yeah.
it's largely
Well, if
largely in they're doing her own thing.
when they're doing the report outside the front of the school, she says there's one person's killed, and then there's a guy like just stood behind her making faces, and she turns around and shoots him
Yeah.
and says
Two people
two,
killed.
two people killed, and then we've got Officer Doofy, who is obviously a parody of Dewey from Scream, but like in the most horrific, like it's just bad, isn't it? Like it is, but again, this is one thing that probably hasn't aged that well. It's just playing a probably intellectually disabled special officer Doofy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and she's
Di-
obviously
yeah, this
Gail
is
is trying to get closer to him to get info on the case. It seems so ridiculous trying to actually pick apart the plot of this, Andy.
yeah, it seems quite different because effectively it is Scream but very silly. We'll touch on the doofy stuff, I guess, on this one because this one is, I think especially it's a number of things have come a long way, and you know what people will say. Not don't want to sound like Jeremy Clarkson here, but you couldn't make a character like this in a film now, and I will follow that by saying you also shouldn't. Because it is a really insensitive
Yeah,
portrayal
like
of
it's
someone
it's
with
one of
an
those
intellectual
things.
disability.
Again, it's probably quotable for like the idiots who were enjoying this film back in the day, and by idiots I include myself in that. It's quotable for that, but apart from that, when you watch it back, like, is it even really that funny? Like some of the jokes, like the fact that he's basically getting noshed up by the Hoover, you
Yeah.
know, that's kind of amusing. Like when he's almost breaking up with
Oh,
the
it is like
Hoover.
yeah, no one, no one interrupt me when I'm vacuuming.
No one interrupt me when I'm cleaning my room.
The thing is, I
And
think
then
now what you would just do is, bearing in mind he's almost like a Ross from Friends character anyway. I think you would just have him as you know, like a failure to launch kind of son that still lived at home, and probably you would make him like Jim from American Pie, basically a big old virgin stuck at his house that was doing these
yeah,
things, but and you wouldn't add the actual, make him a person with a disability factor to it. And that, it kind of retroactively makes you feel bad about yourself 20 years ago where you're like, oh.
yeah, it does. But I also
But,
feel like,
it is what it is. They can't edit or remake these
well,
things. It
the
is what it
only thing
is.
that's the only thing that's interesting, as I said, is that the actor who plays him seems to be doing all right as a making appearances at various like out of everybody in this film, like probably the only one I've seen who seems to be making appearances at conventions and stuff, and people actually wanting to meet him. He it does. I didn't even know this was a thing. Now I've clicked on his names. He played the main character in The Walking Deceased, which is
Oh, no.
obviously a
Is
Walking
that an
Dead.
asylum? Is that an asylum project?
I don't know. It says from one of the producers of Scary Movie, so it's obviously a comedy. Wow. Oh. I'm not
Oh,
even going to
you've
look at
fallen
that
down the
anymore.
rabbit hole.
I think there's like some of them. It's like a parody of all zombie films. I think, well, modern zombie films. So obviously The Walking Dead, but also the parody of like Zombieland and and Warm Bodies, possibly. Yeah. Anyway, so if anything, Dave Sheridan for his questionable portrayal of Doofy is doing all right at the old conventions these days. People are wanting to
That's all
meet him.
right. And he's
He
been
was
in a
he was
few of the Wayans films as well.
yeah, he was in some he was in a film I watched recently. Like a Oh wait, was he in he wasn't in Psycho Gorman, was he?
Was he in Psycho Gorman? Let's have a look.
I feel like it was in something that I've seen fairly recently. No, I don't think he was in Psycho Gorman. I think I've imagined that. But he was definitely in something that I watched recently. It's so terrible, and I'm just trying to go through a bloody
Well,
list.
he's been in 54 movies, Ben. So he's
Bloody hell, he's
been
doing right. Isn't
he's been amongst it for a little while. Let's have a look. So Scary Movie would appear to be his
he?
earliest
Yeah.
movie. Ghost World, Bubble Boy, Corky Romano.
He was also in the
Um,
music video, Universally Speaking, by Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think he's like the guy who's. I think I remember. Still a bit random. I
oh,
think I thought of him as somebody else
he's
actually.
in
Doofy.
2016's 50 Shades of Black. He's in Grow House, Bloodcraft. Looks like he's big in the parody world.
Yeah, I mean as he would be. Um, so there's a couple more bits now where it like parodies Halloween and stuff. Where Cindy's let's talk about the teacher. What's going on with the teacher? She's got a baby. The dad of the baby seems to be one of the students. There's a girl who's sort of like she's talking about human rights and stuff, and then the teacher just says, "Oh, shut the fuck up," punches her. I mean, again, I don't really know what these bits are supposed to suggest, other than like, I don't know, we're laughing at it because it's outrageous. Um, Cindy receives a note from the killer who says, "I know what you did last Halloween," um, and she remembers having a lovely
Prompts a
picnic.
flashback.
Prompts a flashback where she's having a lovely picnic with Bobby, but then the note says, "Not that when you killed a guy." Which again is kind of funny because the note writer has anticipated her flashback. Do we see everything that kind of happened? I think we do see the sort of them
If
murder.
not immediately, then we do get the readout of it fairly swiftly, right? Where it shows them all together. And this takes a little break from being a Scream blow by blow to being pretty much the opening scene from I Know What You Did Last Summer, where the
Yeah,
characters, with the exception of Shorty, are all traveling along. People love blowjobs in this movie, and then her boyfriend,
oh
not Freddie
man,
Prinze Jr., is really angling for one, and then
angling
when the
for
Ryan
one.
Felipe like stand in does his
Yeah,
bit where he gets out of the sunroof on the old source, he accidentally stands on her back and forces her face into his lap, um,
fucking hell.
and
It
then
pretty
they
much is
crash the
just
car and run the fisherman over. Joke being that he's actually fine, but then they throw a bottle at him and knock him out
yeah.
and throw him off the
I'm
bridge.
fine, guys. I'm fine. Not a
I'm just
problem.
leaving. All right.
Yeah. Um, and that's two car accidents caused by fellatio already in this film. Um, there was that. Don't
The stats
don't.
for this town are off the charts.
Oh, there was one of Richard Gadd's jokes in Baby Reindeer actually, because obviously the whole thing of Baby Reindeer was that his comedy wasn't great, but there was one joke that did make me laugh when he said he crashed his car and it was because of a blow job during while he was driving. He was like, perhaps I shouldn't have been the one giving it while he was driving, which I enjoyed. I thought, yeah, that's funny. That's funny.
I don't know.
Blowjobs can
Like,
be
not that
funny.
I'm doing a pulse check on this. I'm not a survey census taker, but I've never claimed to be one. Do
You
blowjobs while
sure?
people are driving? Is that still a thing? Is that like a
What, like receiving one while you're driving, not giving one?
is that just what is that
I
just from
think,
films?
I
That
think,
you know,
I mean,
do the
maybe
police have a book on this where it's like
I don't want to
I've
put
never
them.
seen it on the overhead signs. You know what I mean? I've heard Be a careful driver. Get your eyes checked. Don't drive angry. You know what? Stop and have a coffee in a minute because it's dangerous to drive tired.
I
I've never
almost don't
seen
want
on the
to.
signs
I almost don't want to
no.
answer this because I feel like I'm just gonna. I'm gonna be showing my cards. I should keep them close to my chest. Yeah, yeah, it's a thing. I mean, it's not like a thing that is I've indulged in every day of my life, but I could count on one hand.
I don't know if Gen. I don't know, Ben, if Gen Z are out doing that. Maybe
Well,
they are.
I don't know. Like I was about to say dogging, but I think dogging is while the car is stationary. So
Dog. I
safer.
think dogging's a boomer thing. Surely that is
Well,
like
I think dogging is
driving.
a boomer thing.
That's
Yeah.
like driving to the woods in a car park. And
Oh, you know about that, then, do you? But not
I
about.
got the I got the internet, mate. I know what it's about.
You got the internet. We've all
I'm a
seen it.
professional. I have to talk about these things. Got a criminology degree. Think I'm in a fuck
Yeah.
spiders.
I absolutely love it that you've got a fucking excuse for everything, haven't you? I need to know about this dogging, don't I? Come on. Um, yeah. I
Don't
mean, if it
you're
isn't,
just portraying ignorance. You need education in your life. You got to know
if it
about
isn't,
everything
if it isn't a thing in real life, it most certainly is a thing in scary
in
movie.
films. Yeah.
I also think, sorry, I'm going back to this, but I also think that um receiving a blowjob while driving, you must never act like people act like in films, which is close their fucking eyes.
So,
Oh, it's
really
such a
take the
good blow.
moment in.
It's such a great blowjob that I'm going to close my eyes even though I'm driving. Be well aware of the road. Still pay attention to those things. You know, it's the risk element of it is what makes it maybe a little bit fun. But don't
Yeah.
close your eyes. Never close your eyes
Yeah.
when you're driving, right?
Keep them
Never.
open.
But
I
moments
tell you
you're
what
allowed to
though.
blink. You're allowed to blink. You're allowed to close your eyes momentarily and blink. That's
But
it.
yeah, nothing beyond that. I tell you what though, Ben, I'll make an extension. Even if, having a blowjob while people are driving, or
Having a blowjob
oral
while
sex of
people are
any
driving.
kind.
Not even while you're
Yeah.
driving. Having a blowjob while people are driving.
Yeah. Even if any type of oral sex is still the new hotness while people are driving, I'm willing to accept that. Maybe it's just me that's out of touch, but you know what?
Oh, God.
I don't reckon it's a thing that people do it while there's 3 to 4 other people in the car, one of them with their head out the sunroof. I reckon that's
That
still a fairly intimate moment, and you're not going to do it while your schoolmates are in the car banging on.
that's true. That's true. I'll admit with that. You say schoolmates, but they're definitely like late 20s, right?
They
And I
joke
think they
about that,
make a
don't they?
joke
Saying,
about
haha,
that,
I
don't
bet
they?
if there was a film of this, I'd be played by people in my mid to late 20s to early
Yeah.
30s.
Oh man. So yeah, they obviously kill the guy, dispose of the guy, and this is where the I know what you did last summer stuff comes into it. Because they start to believe that these notes that they're receiving are from the killer. From the killer, who is that person, right? They
Who
think it's
is
that person.
well,
Or
they
who
assume that
knows? Who
it's
knows?
from that person or who they saw
Yeah.
what they did.
Because
And is this the point where they walk out of the school or maybe this is later, but I'll say it now anyway. Your favorite scene from I Know What You Did Last Summer, the one that
oh
was
yeah, what
directed
are you
by a little
waiting for?
boy.
And this is funny as well, right? This is funny.
Yeah.
I know suicide's not funny, but this is a good joke. This is a good joke that lands. But before that, obviously we see Greg. Um, he goes to football practice, then goes to the gym because he wants to shower on his own, and we find out why. It's because he's got a micro penis, and
Yeah.
a little picture gets left on his locker saying "I know," and he thinks that Ray took it, and he goes and confronts him, and also showing everybody the picture for some reason. This is also funny. The fact why does he always beat up Cindy? What's his problem? There's a bit where he's trying to convince her to admit that she'll never tell anyone about the person they killed, and he just strangles her.
Yeah.
And this bit, he literally just starts beating her up, kicking her head in. And again, I know, man or woman violence, or violence of any type, Andy.
Don't
I'm not a
condone
fan of
it.
it. I don't condone any of it unless it's in a choreographed situation, WWE style. But this is funny because it's just it's first of all, it's unnecessary, it's unexpected, and like I don't really get what it means in the film, but I still laughed.
Yeah. Maybe I'm the what's it called? It takes a certain thing to do taste. I think none of those things are if you are like with all the other things about it, if this is you saying this is like an extreme example of basically the messaging that we get from the movies that Hollywood put out, right? So, the fact that the women are pressured into sex, the fact that there's quite a lot of violence to get them, like Ryan Felipe
Bloody hell, man.
um
Yeah, it's a good
in
point.
I know he did last summer. He's like, you fucking tell anyone, I'll kill
Yeah.
you. Um,
Oh
like
yeah, I suppose
those,
you're right.
and they're
That
done with a
must be
straight
it.
face.
Yeah.
If you're doing these in a comedically overstar way to say this is the tropes of the genre,
Yeah.
then it's there.
It
The
was just
challenge is that I
it
think
was
there
just so
are some
weird.
audience
So
members
weird.
that take away from that because it's all right to do that, isn't it? That's funny.
I'm gonna beat someone up. I'm gonna batter them. Not funny, of course. And then so basically tells them they talk about the note, and then they go to tell the police, which is again weird. Where like the policeman is showing Cindy, got some pictures for you to look at, and it's just a picture of him in various poses,
Yeah,
wearing some
various
skimpy
outfits looking
underwear.
for his much. No, that's
Do you
not.
want to look? Do you want to look? Do you want to look at one more? Yeah, go on then. What about that
No,
one? No, not that
no.
one either. Um, so at Buffy's, so then we get the beauty pageant scene, which is I guess is Sarah Michelle Gellar in a beauty pageant in I Know What We Did Last Summer? Yeah,
I
I
think
can
there
kind of
is a beauty pageant
I can
scene,
kind of
but
picture that.
in this is where we get another murder. Is it Anna Faris's boyfriend that gets killed here, or is it someone else?
Not Anna Faris's boyfriend,
Oh,
Shannon
of course, he
Elizabeth's
has to come out like
boyfriend.
the Shannon
Yeah, yeah.
Elizabeth's boyfriend.
So
That's it.
again, she's doing the beauty pageant thing, and then she says, "I'm gonna do my
A
basically
dramatic
my
reading.
talent as a dramatic reading." And then just before she starts it, she sees her boyfriend getting stabbed up on the like balcony or wherever opposite, and she starts obviously actually screaming and crying, and everyone's like, "Hey, she's good! Oh, she's great! Oh my god!" Like clapping. And then she like runs off the stage, obviously distressed because her boyfriend's been killed. But then when she hears, "But Buffy, you've won," she's like, "Oh, okay. Well, forget Greg. Then he can eat shit."
Greg,
Um,
yeah.
Greg, again, pretty funny, I think. Um, Stat night, Cindy goes home alone, and I think this is when the killer. Oh wait, here's another thing. Let's talk about Cindy's dad, who
A drug
like
dealer.
a drug dealer
Uncle
who
Escobar's been over.
Uncle Escobar's going around, and he basically has got Cindy like since she was a kid, makes jokes about him like, "What do you do when the police come? Flush Daddy's stash." Um, yeah, and then obviously it's weird because she's obviously at one point going backwards, trying to hide her boyfriend from him, even though he's a drug dealer. And again, I told you about this. This still makes me laugh. Is when he obviously asks to see a little bit of nudity from Cindy, and she goes, "How about PG-13?" Opens her top, it's just like a man's chest,
Yeah,
and he
like a
falls backwards
hairy
out the
chest.
falls backwards out the window. I think the moments like that, like the slapstick moments, or the physical comedy moments, or the moments like that, were just completely like bizarre. I do
Yeah,
still enjoy. I do still enjoy. Yeah, sorry, go on.
yeah. No, that was it. And I think the slapstick is what has held up the best for me at this one. But yeah, after he's gone, is this when we have the first attack at the house?
Yeah,
Which we get again, it's the classic Scream scene where Nev Campbell is chased around the house by the killer, that she has a phone call, and it's like, oh,
yeah.
where am I in the house? She goes, oh, you're behind the sofa. I can see your feet. And he's like, oh shit.
Where am I? I'm about in the house. I could be anywhere. He says. Um.
um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I could. And then she hides again. Then we have the confrontation. This is where she throws, runs up the grand stairs to the house, and there's loads of like dangerous things to throw down them, including her grandma. She's like, I'm so sorry, the grandma's like, motherfucker, going down the stairs. And then I think maybe my favorite individual shot of the movie, when she gets to the top of the thing, and there's basically just an upright piano there, and she
Yeah.
pushes it down the stairs. And this is one of the first times you get the change in the Scream mask face, but looking terrified,
Oh
having
yeah,
like
of course.
Terminator running down the stairs, the
That
piano
is good
behind
though.
him.
The change of the Scream mask is good. Like the Scream mask looking terrified, the Scream mask being stoned, like that's all like very good. I do. I do enjoy that stuff.
launching a whole new series of novelty masks. I know, Ben, you're a big fan of the Scream mask with the little heart thing that you pressed, and then
Oh yeah, well, the blood
the
comes out.
blood coming
That
down there.
that
But I
wasn't the
feel
version I
post
actually had.
2000,
Yeah,
all the scary movie like variants of the Scream mask are also available at your local novelty shop.
yeah. Oh, um,
What? Sorry,
yeah.
you were
So
about to say what version do you have? Do you have the glow in the dark one with the
I
little
think I
knife?
just had the standard version. It wasn't the glow in the dark version. It wasn't the blood version. Um, so yeah, what happens? The killer attacks her. She contacts the police. Oh yeah, Bobby arrives, and then like he's got a cell phone, knife, and gloves just fall out of his pocket, and he goes, "Oh, I can explain that." And then he gets arrested, and then Cindy go, and again, it really is Scream almost beat for beat. She goes to Buffy and Doofy's and stays there. And again, this feels like a joke, but this actually pretty much happens in Scream, where Dewey comes into the room after the killer calls, and like the phone's been put down, but he goes, "Hello," like that's a
Yeah,
genuinely funny moment from Scream. But obviously now they go one step further and make it look like Doofy's been receiving. Again, it's fellatio's a theme, Andy. Fellatio from the Hoover, from the Hetty Hoover. I don't know if it's Hetty. I don't think it is.
yeah.
Um, so the next day, Bobby gets released from jail.
Because there's been a call proving it's not him.
Yeah. Um, and then I think we get the kid again. This is pretty funny because this is kind of something that happens in Scream, but not to this degree with Rose McGowan, where obviously she sees the killer and says like, "Oh, Mr. Killer, what am I supposed to be? Terrified?" And then realizes it's actually a killer, and she is scared. But Buffy takes it one step further, where she's like feigning fear throughout her actual murder, even
Yeah,
even to the point where the killer is like freaked out, like going, "Oh
yeah.
God."
I mean, bearing in mind she continues to talk after her head has been cut off. And she's
Yeah,
like, oh, great. Now I'm a headless, but he chucks her in the bin.
chucks her in the bin. Yeah, says like, "See you later." Can't blame him. Yeah, when she breaks her leg as well, like the bone sticking out, that's pretty
That's
horrific
actually
as well.
quite a good
Good
physical,
effect.
but that is just like if you didn't have like comedy dialogue in that, that would be a gross bone break.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um.
that's genuinely, a horror scene. It doesn't dial back on the actual bloody murders when it puts them in, and the head is
mm.
cut off. Um, the fact that it continues talking after a head's been cut off like undercuts the horror
Again,
element. But
that's a
yeah,
good effect as well. Like I was a bit like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. There are a couple of like this is the thing, the year 2000, there are a couple of bits of practical effects which look kind of okay. There's a couple of like shiny CGI moments. But for the most part, like some of the effects look all right. Like some of the effects are unnecessary. Man ejaculating a lifetime's worth of jizz and plastering a woman to the ceiling while he like goes inside out pretty much. Like completely unnecessary. But
but
um,
it is what it is. But yeah, for the actual murder scenes, it's good. And I think at
yeah.
this point, if you haven't already been, we did get your favorite child directed scene from
Oh yeah, of
I think
course.
where she comes in and goes, "What are you waiting for?" Unfortunately, there is a man trying to be talked down off the roof as she
There
comes
is a
out and does
suicidal
it.
teacher on the roof, and he's like, "I've had enough of these teenagers." And then obviously she comes out screaming at the sky, "What are you waiting for?" And he goes, What am I waiting for? Fuck you!" And just like jumps, and it does look like he lands in a pile of leaves, but still.
Yeah, that is the software. So that Jonathan Creek episode where the guy's faked his death.
Oh yeah. Again,
Spoilers for a 20-year-old episode of Jonathan Creek.
again, pretty funny in retrospect. I find that's a pretty
Yeah,
good way of looking at it.
that's one of those things. Like again, like I think as people begin to say, like, oh, you can't joke about anything. Well, you can joke about these things. I think there is a difference between being over the top and slapstick and then punching down. I am I'm constantly grinding my teeth that people trying to release videos on social media platforms will avoid saying things like killed or dead or
Yeah.
a swear word because they'll get demonetized. I think that's gross and you should be allowed to swear and do these things.
Yeah.
But at the same, especially when you're making content for adults, and I think it is fine to make a joke that is about mortality or about those other things. You
Hmm.
know, And actually, especially as we've been going through it, there's a lot of this stuff here which is just it's age. Not that you can't say this anymore, just because they're a bit old now, and like you said, Ben, that we've moved along a little bit. But there are some funny bits in there, and that bit, again, a bit of slapstick. There is something funny where an obvious dummy is thrown off a roof.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, okay, there's a bit where Gail like goes to this place called Lover's Lookout to try and get a murder on camera, and essentially she's interviewing this girl while she's getting killed. What are you feeling right now? Extreme pain.
Extreme
And
pain,
then
call up.
and then the killer's like, "Get the hell out of my face! I'm just trying to bloody work here."
Get
You
the
work
camera
with
out of my face. That's pretty good. That's like
and
the
I was like,
don't get
"Cops,
done,
isn't
get
it?"
dumb.
Yeah. And then and then this bit is like obviously a send up of the Blair Witch Project where Gail's like running away and then she's talking into the camera and the parody is that she's her nose is basically turned on like a tap and she's leaking snot directly into the
Yeah, she's
camera.
snotting
Which
all over the camera after she
yeah,
loses her cameraman.
yeah.
Um, and at this point, she is a bit like Gail Weathers in Scream. She's trying to get the inside track on the story by sleeping with the inept policeman, in this case, Officer Doofy.
And he says, Gail swallows. Gail swallows. Oh my God. Um, okay, and then we get the best scene, which is Ray and Brenda go to the cinema. They're watching Shakespeare in Love, and she's literally not shutting up. I had a very similar experience to this once when I went to the cinema with someone in front of me. I think I've told you about this, and it was when me and a friend of mine went to watch. I feel like it was Conjuring 2. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we were just me and my friend like we weren't angry, we were just absolutely baffled because we couldn't believe it was happening. It was real life. This woman in front of us, she just kept you again constantly talking, phone was ringing, she was answering it, text. Her friend that she was with left the screen, I feel like out of anger, but I feel like they'd been drinking too much. But she was doing the classic thing where it was a horror film and she was turning around going, I find it funny, not scary.
Oh, actually, the
And people were
worst.
shouting across the cinema to tell her to shut up. And this is like, this is obviously a really extreme version of that with Brenda. Um, but it is
Shush
pretty funny.
yourself. Shh.
Just yourself. People are just getting gradually more and more ridiculously angry, and it's a parody of the opening sequence of Scream 2. Ray goes off to the bathroom where
Gets it all
he
willy through the
is.
brain.
Yes, I just gets the old Willy through the brain. Like that's just a thing. That's just a thing that happens. You know what I mean? Willy through the brain. He gets the old Willy through the brain. He's back in the sequel now. Wait, he's not only is he back in the sequel, he's in the rest of this film. What am I talking about?
Yeah, he's fine.
He's fine. Wait, what? And even Brenda's fine. I didn't even think of that. There's a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
times.
she's in the second one as well. She goes, "That's just bones." So she beats at the
Oh yeah,
skeleton,
yeah. It's just bones. And what are you scared of this for? So yeah, she gets stabbed by all of the other moviegoers who are sick of her
including
and just
like
want
a
her to shut up.
priest and
A priest, an old lady, and they all like high five each other, like yes, yes, yes.
they're very glad
Um,
that she's died, so they
and
can
then
get on and watch. Not Ray Fiennes, the other one. Um, Another Fiennes in.
another fine. John finds. I don't know.
I don't
One of
know.
the finds.
I
Peter
have seen
finds. What
Shakespeare in
knows?
Love, but yeah, him in Shakespeare in Love.
Him in Shakespeare in Love. Joseph finds. There we go.
Joseph Fiennes, that's it.
Um. So yeah. So she dies like just like collapses like Jada Pinkett Smith did at the start of Scream. Recreated that really well. I thought that was
Yeah,
very
I said
effective.
that's almost shot for shot, right?
Collapsed. And then we get the house party at the end of at the end of Scream. Um, and again, a lot of the beats from Scream are kind of recreated. Like woman gets caught in the cat flap thing in the garage door, but
Except
because
this time,
she's
Ben, you mentioned this last time. It's the big funny thing that the parody movies went to. You see, the funny thing here is that she's a big fat woman, isn't she? So
the funny thing is that she's plus sized. So
that
you know
being
how
said,
Rose McGowan
she's
got
not.
caught.
I think it by Hollywood standards, she's like maybe a size 14. She's
Exactly.
not fat
That's
at
the thing.
all.
But that's the thing, isn't it? Like that is the way these films kind of portrayed anyone who wasn't, teeny tiny. But yeah, because of her size, rips down like the whole garage door. There is quite a good joke here where she gets scared by a cat and she goes, "Oh, it's just you, kitty," and then gets scared by a horse. Oh, it's just you, horse. Um, this also is a character, Tina, who hasn't been in the film, right? Up
No,
to this point, we haven't seen her. So they're like, obviously Rose McGowan in Scream, her character is like one of the main group for
she's
some
like the
reason.
Shannon Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. That's probably more
yeah,
more likely.
that is
Um,
her. That is her character. I guess it's because they are, well, for one, for body count, and two, because it's Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. You just needed an
yeah.
extra character
It
that's,
is
again, has
confusing.
not been in
Can you
it.
imagine? I feel like imagine if you grew up watching Scream a lot and Scary Movie. There must be like some actual crossover in your brain where you can't remember
Yeah,
what's what, well, what's parody and what's real. Like luckily I think Scary Movie was something I'd seen a handful of times, and luckily as I got older I watched Scream a lot more regularly. So that has officially replaced Scary Movie in my brain
yeah.
as
Yeah,
like
yeah. You've
canon.
seen, so it's that has come over. But I guess if you could have gone the other way, you would think a lot of things in Scream. Or the piano chases him down the stairs in Scream.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I would. Yeah, yeah. What happened when this happens? Um,
The movie
you know.
watching party, because I guess Shorty is sort of Randy in this one. Um,
Yeah,
whereas
yeah.
Randy is a
But there was
geeky film
also
student, he's a stoner character.
a guy dressed exactly like Randy, who the one Gail Weathers shot right at the start. He was wearing like
Oh
exactly the
yeah,
same outfit, and I thought, oh yeah, that's the Randy character, and he got shot. So obviously not. Um, yeah. So during the house party, obviously that happens. Then Cindy and Bobby go upstairs and have sex, and this is it's so strange this scene. Like, oh man, I can just imagine. Like, imagine being in the writers' room coming up with this. Right, okay, so they're gonna have sex for the first time. First of all, when you try to go in her pants, some bats are gonna fly out, and she
yeah,
says, "Oh, it's been a while," but I'm like, before she's just saying she's a virgin. Then she's got a massive mound of pubic hair, which Bobby tackles with a hedge trimmer.
yeah,
And then, like, just for some reason, he like jizzes an ungodly amount. It's like that meme with Randy Marsh sat at his computer desk with jizz everywhere,
yeah.
and he just plasters her to the ceiling. It is
Yeah, I tell you what, it looks like she
absolutely.
hasn't been with her boyfriend. Looks like Dave Benson Phillips has been round. She's got an absolute gungeon because she's been.
She's been gunged. It's horrific. There are like I don't know what the problem is with jizz. There's a scene in the second movie as well where someone gets wanked off. I say someone. I think it's a wrong un actually. Someone who's been convicted of being a wrong un since that. What's his name? Masterston? Is that his name? Anyway, that he shall
Say
not be
allegedly
named.
until we're sure it's
No,
him.
no,
But
it's
yeah,
true.
probably
It
a
is
wrong
true.
un.
It is true. Not just
Right,
allegedly. But he
famous
gets
wrong un.
like Cindy like wanks him off, and it's almost like they're stuck in the freezer from like The Shining. You know what freezer I mean?
Yeah,
And then he jizzes like a good couple of pints, like smack against the window. I'm like, what is? As have people writing this film never ejaculated before? Because why are people ejaculating like a? Oh, it's mad. It is mad. Bodily fluids are dialed
still
up.
remain the still remain the common denominator for all
Yeah,
comedy.
exactly. Yeah. So then, obviously the bits with the killer getting stoned with
Yeah, the
Shorty
killer
and his
gets stoned. This is where we
friends.
get another mess. So yeah, the killer comes in. They're not all scared of him because they're all very stoned. So they make a bong out the fish tank, do some lovely weed, and have a jolly good time. And they, of course, the killer phones them first before he comes in, and they do. I think this is one of the things that's very fondly remembered by big fans of the movie that do
Oh, what's up?
the What's Up
Oh,
advert, which
that
I think for me,
is.
even though the sensibilities that have moved on are one thing, this is the thing, maybe the moment I found the hardest to watch because I was like,
Oh
this is
yeah.
from this is this isn't a piece of comedy that you did this. This is an extreme
Listen,
version of a thing that was an advert on. It's a Budweiser advert of the time.
and if you didn't know that, you'd be like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah,
They do that. Obviously, Ghostface comes and gets stoned with them as well. They're what they're using as a bong, a fish tank.
Yeah, get in the fish
Oh
tank. They all get
man,
stoned. He gets a different face,
I
and then he does some freestyle rapping, 8 Mile style.
I used to love this rap. I used to love this rap. I'm not joking. And again, when he started saying it, I was like, I knew exactly what line was coming next. I'm gonna slash and gash, cut another hole in your ass. Play something about playing tennis with your balls. I'm gonna have to Google it because
So he
because
says this
honestly,
every. He says this, listeners, if he doesn't know
again, no, I
it.
don't.
He's got every word.
Need the lyrics. But yeah, obviously while he's doing this rap, he's like swinging the knife around and he's killing everybody except Shorty. I'm gonna slash and gash, cut another hole in your ass, spill blood on the walls, play tennis with your balls. If the phone rings, don't answer the call. I'm gonna slit your throat, fuck you like a goat, peel your foreskin off, and make a winter coat. It's just so ridiculous. But honestly, oh man, I don't know why it stuck with me. Well, most some of it. Um, and then what happens after that? That's it, isn't it? He just
So yeah, we basically go to the towards the end game. A killer bursts into the room where Anna Faris has just got herself cleaned up, and they stab her boyfriend. They run down the stairs, and we gather everyone up
yeah
together. And much like in Scream, the killers are revealed to be her boyfriend and um
yeah,
the
and
mate. So the
the
stew.
rev
So the stew
yeah
analog.
Ray, who was essentially like Stu, right? He comes. Yeah, so essentially, Shorty comes upstairs and says, like, "Oh my god, the killer's in the house or whatever," and then suddenly he gets shot, and and then it's Bobby who shoots him, and he's doing that thing with the gun on his head like Skeet Ulrich did. But but then so what's his name? Shorty is like obviously because he was smoking weed, and he guess he was shot in the lung. The smoke is coming out of his bullet
Yeah, so
hole,
do you want to
and
hit
he's
on this?
going it on this. Then yeah, so essentially, yeah, the killers are Bobby and Ray. And Bobby's like, unless you haven't realized, I'm gay. So I'll just let you know I'm gay. And also, if you haven't realized, Ray is also gay. Now,
And he's the
again, something
character all through the film has been like
all the way through the film has been like slapping men's naked asses, complimenting men on other things.
getting his
Basically,
girlfriend to dress up as a man so he can
yeah,
have sex with her.
so he was humping her and calling
And he
her
goes,
a
"No, you do me."
now you do me, yeah. Basically, like the most egregious, this is a gay, this is a closeted gay man. But the twist on the joke is the fact that he goes, "No, I'm not."
I love it. What about that? What about that club you took me to? They play good music.
Oh yeah, you made love to me. He's like, "No, no, you sucked my," and then it cuts off. But still, I think the fact that like that is stuff that probably has aged quite badly. But the payoff, I think, is funny in
Yeah,
context to the
and to
rest.
be fair, like I don't want to paint the picture that like that everything is offensive. Some things are dated, but actually, I don't think it's ever painted negatively that he would be gay.
Yeah,
It's just that
I
they are
guess
saying
that's
he is and he's
true.
saying that he isn't.
I think that it gets a bit old only because like it's just every scenario
Yeah,
to make this character seem gay they do, and like some of it's funny, yeah, some of it's all right, but yeah, I
yeah,
guess
I do
it
like the
doesn't
bit where
paint it
it's
in a
like
negative light.
I do like the bit where it's like he took me to that club. He's, yeah, they play really good music.
The stuff carries on into Scary Movie 2 though. He gets like dragged under the bed by the
The
clown from
clown.
Poltergeist, and then he starts like use get your finger out there. He starts trying to essentially sexually assault the clown, who's like terrified. Do you remember the clown's face when he comes out from underneath
Yeah.
the? uh, okay, so essentially the plan is um to frame the dad. So they bring the dad out of the cupboard,
He's got bondage
like
gear on and a ball gag in his mouth,
on,
and
yeah. Um, and then they do the thing where they're obviously trying to stab each other to make it look
but
realistic.
sadly Ray takes it too far because he's really angry because they think about they're going to stick it to the film producers. So he gets too angry talking about how
Yeah, he does.
the Wayans show was cancelled.
Yeah, it was a great show. And it was canceled after 5 seasons without getting the final episode. Stab, 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 stab. Yeah, again, that's
So
pretty funny.
yeah,
But then the killer, the killer arrives, appears, stabs him, I mean, in the context of the film, I think we've gone past the point of it really mattering. Cindy, Cindy like fights him, and then obviously doing all the moves from the Matrix. But that
Yeah.
Irish dancing bit, oh my God, I can
Actually,
put
Michael
that.
Flatley's it.
First of all, I remember that bit from the trailer. Second of all, it's like the worst green screen you've ever seen. But third of all, it does make me laugh when the killer goes like, "Oh yeah, no, this is good." Like enjoys it for a second. All of this, but again, it's of its time. Think about how many things parodied the Matrix when the Matrix came out. Like so many things. So without a Matrix parody, a film from the year 2000 would have been, you know, not worth watching. Um, the police arrive, the killer disappears, and this is where we essentially get the end, the reveal.
And they work out that it was neither. Well, they were bad, but it wasn't Bobby or uh, Ray. It was Officer Doofy all
And
along.
the way they work it out is just like they go, oh, we're back to the drawing board. We need to find out who the killer is. It was someone who was close to all of them, and then Cindy has like a flashback where she realizes Doofy like saying one thing, and then this is another trope in a movie, right? How many times have you seen this? Somebody says something in a film, but then somebody's memory of somebody saying something in the film is different to the take than it was.
From a different angle.
Like she, because in this he goes, "Bye, Sind," just normally, but in the flashback, he's like, "I sinned," like a bit evil.
Yeah,
So, and then
evil.
this
And then
is
you see him Kaiser Soze in it, walking
yeah,
normally, and actually, Officer Doofy, he's a super cool dude.
and he is doing the Kaiser Soze. They walk away, rips everything off, slick back hair, cigarette, jumps into a convertible car with Gail Hellstorm, um, and then like the cop and Cindy find his discarded mask and knife in the street. And it's again, this happens loads, not just in this film, but in Scream 2. Somebody screaming or doing something in the road, just getting flattened by a car.
Yeah,
It's like, what's funny these days? Getting noshed off, yeah. Car accidents, yeah. Sometimes both of those things in one.
yeah,
That's all you need. Okay. And then the film ends.
with the same
Is
Scream font. That's right, the same font they also use in the video
with
piracy advert.
the same Scream font, the video piracy font, and then we get like an extended version of that Ghostface rap as well.
And a
I'm not gonna.
little Scream 2 Randy bit where you see Shorty like say, "Oh, hey, if I'm dead," if you see in this
Yeah.
video, and he's doing some shoplifting, and he
Oh yeah, run, dash and run. There's a really weird bit in. I got to mention this Scary Movie too. You remember like the bit in the Changeling when like the ball falls that comes down the stairs?
yeah,
There's a bit in Scream 2, Scary Movie 2. See, I called it Scream 2, where a basketball like comes down some stairs and Shorty grabs it, and then all of the main characters do this weird sort of like basketball dance, which I think was some sort of like advert for something. I feel like Jordan's. It was something like
like
that.
Jordans, and like it's probably the era of
Like
the early iPod
this,
adverts as well,
yeah,
right? Where
like
they're
the
all
squeaky bits on the floor, like, and it was mad. I think if you're gonna watch Scary Movie for anything, just watch that because it's so again so of its time. You know when you watch a comedy show or something and it's parodying something that's so current that you almost feel like, why would you do that? Because it's only funny now. Like it's only funny this week. Next week, it might not be
everyone's like, "What's
funny.
that? I don't know what that means."
What is that? It is a bit like that, but obviously you get Take My Strong Hand in Scary Movie 2. Tim Curry is in Scary Movie 2 as well. It's kind of funny, in places.
Yeah,
Egregious, but again, there are a lot of dodgy takes, but have you got any name game?
yeah. Let me come up with one or two. I haven't prepared for this one,
All right.
off the ball. But what's the
Uh,
synopsis, and we'll see what we can do.
if you're coming up with one, I'll give you some time to think while I deliver a couple of mine.
All right.
So after disposing, a year after disposing the body of a man they accidentally killed, a group of dumb teenagers are stalked by a bumbling serial killer. But
Okay.
some would say that as a spoof, it probably doesn't constitute being an actual film. I would say it's a.
Okay, so this is your first one. I thought that was just the real one.
Yeah, sorry. Some would say it doesn't even constitute an actual film. They would call it a.
A scary.
To be fair, it, calling it a movie is probably a bit of one step too far. You would say. I'd say you couldn't even call it that. I can't think of another way of
Oh, I'm off the
describing it.
boil. Obviously, Ben, I've gone rubbish. What's what?
Some would
What?
say it's a barely movie.
Barely movie, of course.
Doesn't quite
That,
rhyme with
that, that,
scary,
that
does it?
that's on me, not you.
It's some me, not you. Uh, okay. Have you got anything? Do you want me to go again?
Yeah, I can do one. So, after finally, while a serial killer stalks them, um, a young man finally has his girlfriend worried about her own mortality. She agrees to have sex with him. Unfortunately, it has been a little while, and after the bats are thrown out, he has to take a hedge trimmer to her pubic region, and he films it.
Harry movie.
It's the hairy movie, correct? A film
I
within a
had Harry.
film.
I had Harry movie written down as well. Uh, anything else? You got any more?
Yeah. Um, in I don't know if this is just a British slang thing, but we'll get it. We both live here. So in this film, there's actually no killer, but all these teenagers have just got a really bad attitude and they just shout a lot and they make a right old din in the cinema and people around just don't like being around them. They're a bit too much.
I did.
They make a
Larry,
din.
Larry
That's right.
movie.
A Larry movie.
Larry movie. I like it. Okay. Um, have you heard about the new scary? Have you heard about the new scary movie number 6?
Knows the details of it now.
They've hired famous Canadian American comedy actor, star of The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Ace Ventura, and they've even named it after him.
Oh, okay. Is it a Carey movie?
It's a Carey movie. You've got it. Well done.
Very
Correct.
good.
Anything else?
Yeah. One more. In this film, after murdering a fisherman a year ago, a group of teens um, are stalked by a killer. So they go to a farm only to find out that that's where the killer is actually at home.
Farm.
Yeah, they go to a farm, not an arable farm, but the other kind of pastoral farm, and they're hunted by a milk giving animal.
Ah, dairy movie.
A dairy movie.
Hunted. No one's ever said that sentence before. They're hunted by a milk giving animal. Give me that
Lots of
milk, will
animals
you?
give milk.
Okay. A year after disposing the body of a man they accidentally killed, a group of dumb teenagers are stalked by a bumbling serial killer, but they take refuge in the quietest area of the school.
Is it the library movie?
It's the library movie. Make sure you whisper when you're in there. Um, yeah,
Fingers on
exactly.
lips.
Any more, Andy?
No,
We
I don't
done?
reckon because nothing rhymes with movie apparently. It's just the other word.
Yeah, I know. Okay, right. So now we've got to rate the movie. I will. It's a difficult one to do, isn't it? Because obviously A to F, pluses and minuses are available. Rate good or rate bad. It's a difficult one to do because I think, like, in hindsight, like, it's not great. And I would only, right, I would watch it again, but through the lens of watching it with someone who's a similar age and demographic to me, who maybe feels nostalgic about it as well. And we're going to laugh at the fact that we remember some of these
Yeah,
jokes rather
many
than
of these things,
the
it's kind of like
how they actually
you're
land.
remembering how you felt at that time as much as you are the film, right?
Yeah, and even at the time, and I said this before at the top of the show, even at the time, this wasn't like out and out like my favorite film. I don't think I owned it on anything. I think I just watched it like a
Yeah.
couple of times. Obviously, I don't think I went to. I doubt I went to the cinema. I'm assuming it was an 18 back in the day. I don't know actually. Good, now I've thought about it, I don't think it's got much swearing in it, or
No, I
Actual
think I
blood
saw.
and
I
guts.
think I saw this at the cinema, and then it struck me
Oh, you
that
did?
maybe I did see it again a second time. That this is real. You're on a bus trip on a ski trip to France, and it's on the bus afterwards. That
That's a very specific memory of
it's
this.
definitely a DVD that bus drivers have to put on a bus that
And they
you're
think
on.
it's great. Hey, I'm taking a load of kids on a ski trip. 20 years ago, they would have loved this film. Gen Z will love it. They'll be well into it. But yeah, in terms of my rating, I think a C plus possibly, and I think I don't know. I think it's probably. I'm
That's
sure it's the
fair.
best. It's the
You
best of
will
all of them.
you will get no shade from me for a C plus there. I think you've articulated your reasoning very well.
Okay.
I'm going to go a little lower because I'm getting my horror hangout hat on here and thinking as a horror movie, yes, it does lean into those tropes. When I'm thinking of a pure horror film, I'll give it a little lower on that. I'm going to go for a D plus, but that's not a D for dysfunctional. That's not a D for absolute dud. These
Yeah.
get degrees, Ben. I say this all the time. Like I'm going to give it a D plus. There are things to enjoy about this. As I said as we are going through, I think some of the slapstick is really good. Some of the there are still jokes that land. The
Mm.
ones that have suffered and aged the most, I think we touched on it as we went through, aren't so much for the fact of oh you can't say that now because it was written at the time, and
Yeah.
as you say, you were different people when you watched it, and you can remember back to that times he was, and we're in no position, we're in no demographics that are actually targeted by anything particularly hurtful. So you can
Mm.
imagine how other people might feel about it, but it is what it is in the past. I think the things that don't land the most to me are the things which are not the film references, but the things that are intrinsically related to pop culture at the time. That
Yeah.
even for someone who was alive and active at that time, it's hard to remember some of them. I'm like, oh, that's a thing, but it's
Yeah.
so
It's
niche and
not
it was
easy.
so
It's not easy.
of that moment that now this is just meaningless in some cases. But it's not to say that it can't be recommended. I think having watched it, I have more hope for the new one. If it is written well, it could be an interesting watch. It could be exceptionally, it does have the potential to be funny. Like I
Mm.
am now, I was about to say I'll watch a trailer at very least and see if I'm going to see it, but comedy films are famously awful for having trailers that just give
Yeah.
away all the best
All
stuff.
the jokes. Yeah.
So maybe I'll
Yeah.
see
We'll see
what
what happens.
maybe I'll avoid the trailer, but see what the feeling is of the general
Mm.
population when the trailer eventually comes out, and we'll see what goes from there. But I'm glad I had a reason to revisit it, so it's been fresh in my mind,
Yeah.
only to see the some of the cool, funny slapstick stuff, if nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah. Most definitely.
There we
Okay,
are.
there we go. There we go. Now, scary movie. I don't know if I'm going to go any deeper into the franchise. I watched number two just because I wanted a little bit something extra to discuss. But yeah. Um. So
I think number
thanks
three,
for
if you do go that far, Ben, I think Michael Jackson features heavily in the third one.
not the actual Michael Jackson. I'm assuming.
No, like
Uh,
parody Michael
yeah.
Jackson putting his baby out the window era Michael
Oh
Jackson.
yeah, of course. Again, it'll be of its time. Um, so thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, become a patron over at patreon.com/horror hangout. Thanks to all of our patrons over there. Thanks to Taj Easton for our theme music. Thanks to Acast for hosting the show. Please consider giving us a rating or review. Head over to Facebook group Horror Hangout Board of Advisors. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube as well. Next week we're covering The Beast Within.
Never
First
seen The
time watch.
Beast Within, Ben.
First time watch for us both. And we better start planning June, right?
Yes. I think I've got a couple of
Thick and
little
fast.
things that I'd like to see on June. It's my birthday, so is it a rule that you get a free pick on your birthday?
Hell, well, I don't think it's a rule, but I would not scoff
Right.
at that suggestion.
I'm gonna ask you live then, Ben. For my birthday, can I have dolls, please?
Of course, you can have
Like
dolls.
Mary Shaw had no children, only dolls. Not that one though,
Very
just the film,
shawl.
just the film Dolls, please.
Yes, let's do it. Let's lock it in. Dolls, it is. Okay. Thanks, Andy, for being a right horror dude, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks to you, Ben, for being a right horror dude. And thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks for bearing with us while we're off doing separate things. Hope you still got episodes. Hope we had a lovely time. But I hope this is a delight that we're all back together
Yeah.
again.
Now,
Long may it continue.
please let us know if you like Scary Movie, if you've watched it anytime recently, or if you feel like it's aged like milk left in the sun for a week and a half.
Or a fine wine. I want to hear it both ways. Get
Well, if
in.
it aged like a fine wine, exactly, which it hasn't.
If you are still quoting the Budweiser advert, good on you.
If you're doing the very rap all these years later, like me, in the
It's
mirror.
your ringtone.
This is my ringtone, yeah. Right. See you later, everyone.
See you later,
Bye.
everyone. Bye for now. Bye.